don't see a whole bunch of loiterers outside.
So what does that actually mean? It means that we're always generating hypotheses about what we are experiencing or what we're about to experience. Top-down flow of hypotheses are met by bottom-up sensory information. That sensory information may not match with our predictions or with our hypotheses. And when we have sensory information that doesn't match with our hypotheses, what we do is we make an update to our predictions because that's a prediction error. They don't seem to line up with each other. So I think this is gonna hurt, actually that wasn't so bad. So now I've learned about whatever it is, or I don't think that this is gonna hurt, like a young child sticking their hand on the stove. They have no understanding that that's gonna be painful or that could potentially damage them. It happens one time, they learn it, it's a new prior experience, and now anytime there's stoves around, I'm gonna predict that potentially this could be painful if I stick my hand on it, and if I'm met with some sort of sensory stimuli, even if it's not necessarily a highly dangerous stimuli, I may predict that I'm in danger because it's close enough that it reflects what I think is going to happen. So a central implication of this theory is that what we perceive is not the world as it actually is objectively, but it's our brain, our minds. I don't like just using the word brain. Our mind is maybe a little bit bigger than just our brain. It's our best guess of it. And Eric talked about this a lot. He referenced Anil Seth's TED Talk on the whole concept of hallucinating reality. And the first time I came in and read about this, it absolutely just like blew my mind up. And that was a couple of years ago. I'm still trying to wrap my head around everything, and that's the conversation that Corey and Todd and Marcos and I had earlier in the day, is that I'm struggling to wrap my head around biopsychosocial versus inactivism versus predictive processing. And at the end of the day, Todd broke it down and he just said, it's probably all of these, it's probably none of these, but it's probably all of these, it's probably none of these, and maybe it actually doesn't really matter except for in highly specialized scientific research, philosophical discussions. But what does matter is that we can take these concepts, we can bring them into the clinic, we can make them relevant for people, we can help to update their perceptions of what's going on in their life so we can reduce their fear, we can reduce their anxiety, we can get them actively encouraged and engaged in moving forward in a way that is different than just a passive approach, in a way that thinks that they need to be fixed, in a way that perceives that they're broken, right? So that's what this is really all about. Whether it's a model, whether it's a framework, whether it's a theory, that's just cool stuff to talk about, but let's get real with it. So for me, this is an example of predictive processing as simple as I can think of it. You got a big elephant, and you got a little hippo, and you got a little turtle balancing on there. It's like a Kermit. Was that correct? Kermit with a J, Kermit? Yeah, like the frog, turtle, reptilian, amphibian. So, as simple as I can, when priors are more heavily weighted, they may dominate a prediction, which dominates the subsequent experience. But if sensory input is more heavily weighted, it may dominate the prediction and the subsequent experience. And we're never gonna be able to ferret out which one is more dominant, but we just have to recognize that sometimes the experience that we have doesn't match up with the sensory information coming in. And that our prior expectations of that experience don't match up with the sensory information that we end up experiencing. So, do we live in a subjective hallucination? Is this the Matrix? Because I'm freaking out, man. But, with two T's, we do have to recognize that this whole concept of predictive processing and inactivism, it's not the next coming of Jesus. Or Joletta. Where's Joletta? Hand up. Jesus. Where is Joletta? But I'm going to steal from George Box. And I'm going to say that all models are wrong, but some are useful. And to echo what Todd said earlier, I think that this is useful to talk about. I think this is a useful concept to bring into the clinic. So let's bring this concept into real life. And this is where Eric stole all of my slides. So yeah. So I literally had to look up new stuff this morning, take out slides, like, oh, he's already used that, they've already seen that. They're not gonna be optically illusionized again. So, but he didn't use this one. Yeah, who's seen this one? Yeah, what is it? I heard rabbit, duck, seagull, skunk, and platypus. Okay, what does it look like now? Right, context changes the perception. It's really difficult to see the rabbit now that you hear the quack. But if we flip it, then all of a sudden Bugs Bunny is chilling. He's like, what's up, Doc? And now it's really difficult to see the duck when it's framed, when the same sensory information is coming in with a different contextual expectation, right? So who's seen this one? Wait. Who sees the soldier? Show of hands. Who sees the dude mooning you right now? Yeah? So is this where the term asshat came from? That's what I think. Okay. What I want you to do is rearrange these letters to form words. Did you guys get spine and subtext? You dirty bastards. No, I got the same thing. I'm totally sick. So we talked about the rubber hand illusion yesterday, so I'm not going to go into that. But who likes Skittles? One person in this room likes Skittles? Seriously? Did you know that all Skittles are the exact same flavor? They just have a different color and a different scent? Yeah, I just ruined Skittles for you. Yeah. So they use scent, they don't use flavor. All Skittles are exactly the same. And most gummy bears are the same too. Yeah, I ruined your candy life. So what about context? Rather than physical illusions and optical illusions, let's look at contextual illusions. Who in here rides a motorbike? Anybody? Or a bicycle? Yeah? Did you know that there is way more accidents for motorcycles that are called look but did not see, right? This is what happens, and it's called inattentional blindness. And that means that you are expecting to see a car when you pull up to an intersection and you look left and right, because you've been primed to see cars, because cars are way more frequent. You're looking for two headlights, you're looking for a certain size, you're looking for a specific object. And what most people who get in look but don't see accidents report is that they never ever saw the motorcycle that they turned right out in front of and hit. And every single time the motorcyclist says, I looked you dead in the eye and you ran me over, right? So how can you not see something that's there even when you look for it? Because you're expecting to see a car, and when your prior expectation doesn't match the sensory information coming into the system, your prediction doesn't match up with objective reality.
So if you have questions, please put them in.
You don't have to ask questions.
Oh yeah, otherwise I'll ask them all. Just saying. Okay, so let's see here, we'll do this right. From Liz Pepin, could you further define, nope, that's from this lecture. I was like, oh crud, maybe that was an earlier one. We're gonna ask you a question from someone else's lecture. Could you further define embodied and embedded person?
I'm going to do my best with the limited scope of knowledge that I have, but I'm probably going to bastardize it if I'm being honest. But to claim that the idea of embodiment is to have the perception or the thought process that consciousness does not arise specifically just from the brain, but it arises from the interplay between the human mind and the body, and that you can't separate those two. So a consciousness is always embodied and receiving information and generating consciousness through your physical embodiment, right? So we don't want to fall into Cartesian dualism. And some people criticize the predictive processing model because it's a little bit like the ghost in the machine, where you're just walking around, you have this brain that's existing within a meat suit that's predicting your reality. Does that help at all? Okay. Does anybody have anything to add to that? Okay.
All right. We have a question from Alice Sanvito. You raised the question of whether pain is always generated as a response to perceived threat. Can you discuss that?
I have no idea. I think that the threat perception model is probably the most popular model in current, pain science culture, because it's something that really eloquent speakers who are highly intelligent and have done a lot of research on the topic often refer to. But I've thought about it long and hard, and I have no idea where I stand. I think that it's a model that's probably wrong, but at current, it's maybe somewhat useful, kind of like the George Box quote. Because I think there are probably lots of scenarios where we could collectively come up with examples where people don't appear to be perceiving threat, but they experience pain. But then the flip side of that argument is, who are we to define what threat is on either a subconscious, conscious, or sensory level? So I don't think that we really have the capacity to answer that question yet.
Okay, I feel terrible because she told me how to say her name, and I got it like on the 47th try, but I don't remember how to say it correctly. Can you tell me? Shauka. Close? Thank you. Asks, do you know of any literature about the waiting room in decor?
So I feel like I've read something, but we know how that goes, and I bet that Jerry Durham does. I bet money.
Velocity's expectations research talks about the waiting room before.
I know that there is one study published, and I can't think of the author off the top of my head right now, but it was introduced to me by Adrian Lowe, that shows that waiting for longer than like 3 to 5 minutes in the waiting room once a patient arrives for their scheduled visit often leads to reduced outcomes from that visit and a lesser experience. But I have no idea the author there, so I don't want to misquote too much.
I don't mean to sound like a mom or a teacher, but hey, Jerry, you know how to use the app? Could you just toss that reference up there for us? Thanks, dude.
Yes.
Okay. I'm learning how to delegate on a more regular basis.
I like it.
So,
I like it.
thanks for the info. Also give it to me in writing. Okay. Now we have a question from Jason Erickson. If pain science is the air we breathe, what would you consider the food we eat?
This is tough. Yeah, I don't know. For me, it would be sushi. Absolutely sushi. That's definitely. That's what it is.
Even in Texas, I feel like that's.
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
There's overnight flights that like get that stuff in quick, but not as good as here.
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty. Now we have a question from Edison Andres Longrano. Am I getting that right? Okay. Excellent. Fabulous. Okay. Do you think that there is a reason why many patients go to a guru? Why do the contexts handle the treatment very well?
So I think that people go to gurus because we have used a system that has pretty much told people that they are broken, they need to be fixed, and there's often gurus who, from a cultural and societal perspective, really push the idea that they have the ability to fix you. And whether it is a true belief that they have within themselves that drives them, or it's a malicious belief that they want to make money, or it's a malicious marketing tactic, you will never know what somebody's implicit drives and biases are. But I think that the cultural perspective through the traditional biomedical model and the traditional training The traditional training approaches that we have had, that again Eric talked about last night, about the hyperspecificity of our ability to feel and do things with our interventions, probably drives that. So it's embedded in culture, and that embedded idea probably facilitates people to seek out a guru fix, because people are in pain and they're reaching out for somebody to help them, and they hear somebody say that they can help them, whether or not that's accurate.
All right, anyone else going to pop in a question, or should I do one? Okay, so a general theme for this weekend has been practitioners not validating patients, not really getting the top down, definitely kind of focusing on the top up. So this room, a room full of brilliant people, going back and making differences. Obviously, there's a lot of people not in this room. It'd be a lot more crowded. Where would you say we need to start to implement these discussions and thoughts and philosophies to have a larger impact on, well, mostly just how people are feeling? Because I don't know that it necessarily lies just in the healthcare system. What do you think?
So I hope you guys have a lot of time, because this could be an
You have 4
entire
minutes.
weekend. This could be an entire weekend course in and of itself, right? So yeah, we are, I don't know, like 100 people in a room when there's 200,000 physios in the United States, and that's not counting chiropractors and occupational therapists and massage therapists, personal trainers and medical doctors and so on and so forth. And Melissa, I know that you're not a physio, so I want to make sure I distinguish you, yeah, because I said all physios. We're just a drop in the bucket, and we're probably not going to affect real change unless, first of all, every single one of us are screaming at the top of our lungs and at the middle of our lungs and whispering and speaking to people in every possible way that we can. So, for example, I think the communication styles need to vary so we hit a large target of people both within the healthcare system and outside of the healthcare system, so we can get that snowball rolling. And some of those examples could be brilliant guys like Adam Meekins, who has a very strong and aggressive style, versus Zach Gabor with the Level Up Initiative, who's really trying to come at it from a less aggressive and more open, sit-down conversational approach, grabbing young clinicians when they come out of school and changing their biases as well, trying to get to the policy level where we actually change what the school requirements for education are. We start implementing the IASP curriculum for pain. We start going to legislators and actually educating legislators on this situation, because I bet every legislator that you go talk to at a state and national level either has had pain, had chronic pain, has a family member who has chronic pain, has somebody that's addicted to opioids, knows somebody that's overdosed on opioids. You saw every single hand that came up in here when Marcos talked yesterday about the opioid situation. So if we're not hitting this grassroots from the bottom, if we're not going at the legislative level, if we're not going to the institutional and educational level, it's going to be a really, really slow process. And there is a quote that says, change happens one death or retirement at a time, right? So some of it is, just a gradual evolution over time of old school beliefs and people that don't really have the emphasis or the care to be invested at the end of their careers to make those changes, and oftentimes they're in teaching positions and all that sort of stuff. Obviously not anybody in this room, but I think that we could dissect this problem down to just incredibly small little categories that we could affect change on people.
Awesome. We had a couple more come in. Do you want to do a couple more?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Because I lied. You were actually at like 8 minutes. So, all right. So from Kirby, I didn't really mean to lie. I was just bad at math. Okay. So from Kirby Bohan, Kirby, following on Sarah's question, how do we break the pattern of people seeing the guru healer versus the hope dealer?
Yeah, that's really hard as well. And I don't know if there's any one way to do this. In fact, I know that there's not one way to do this. There's not any single answer. But if we start if we start changing society, if we start changing the messages that are on the television, the messages that are on the radio, the way that people are trained and educated, the laws that are in place, all of this sort of stuff, hopefully some of these ideas die out. You know, like who right now thinks that pain comes from a disruption in the four humors in the body? But that was the prevailing idea of pain for almost 2,000 years from Hippocrates, right? Well, actually, Hippocrates took it from one other guy, but he refined it. And it's like, oh man, you got imbalance of biles, black bile, red bile, blood, phlegm, this sort of stuff. That's what causes pain. But literally nobody in this room thinks that right now. And probably very, very few people in the country, or maybe even in the world, think that. And what we have to do is really try to take the ideas that we have right now, and we have technology, and we have social media, and we have the ability to disseminate information way faster. So hopefully it doesn't take 1,500 years to 2,000 years to change. We can be purposeful about doing that right now. And I think that everybody should be doing what I call peri-pain education. It's not what I call, I think I learned it from Mark Cardula, peri-pain education. Not only are you educating people in pain about pain, but you're educating everybody that you interact with about what we kind of know about pain, so that when they do have pain and they come to you to ask you questions, it's not a totally new conversation, because they've kind of been exposed to ideas, and maybe that door is just a little bit cracked, and they won't believe what the guru healer is saying to them as much, because it doesn't make sense with what they've heard from other people that they respect a lot. Does that answer the question?
It's pretty good, I think. All right.
What's that?
You're very thorough.
Very
Oh,
thorough.
sorry.
That's good feedback.
Yeah.
It's good to get feedback. Okay. So thank you. You're good.
Thank you.
All right. Awesome. So not that there's really like a weak program to compare it to, but like we have a really strong finish as well. So we're going to start at 3:20 with Dave Walton. Again, I have not been asked to nor paid to say, but you can go get his book and have him sign it after his lecture. And then we're going to finish up at the end with actually a panel of fantastic speakers. So just see you back here at 3:20. And what? And the vendors. You have to go out these doors, go walk by the vendors. I said that at the last break too.